Whoa.
Oh,
Hey,
hey,
there we go.
let's go. Let's start it, baby. Come on.
You've known them to run their mouths about politics. Politics, schmalitics. Well, little did you know, they can run their mouths about other stuff as well. This is the Mark G Show. They have a natural curiosity about just about everything, from aliens, the paranormal, to the biggest natural disasters that have ever occurred on planet Earth, and everything in between. Two brothers from another mother ripping it up. And oh no, we don't record the show. We have the balls to do it live. Call into the show at 207-370-5852. That's 207-370-5852. Be a part of the show. Let's do it. This is the Mark G Show. And now your hosts, Mark G and Gary G.
Yeah, baby. What is going on? TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, every other place. Everybody's listening to us on Apple and Spotify and so forth. What's going on? I am Mark G. We got a hell of a show for y'all tonight. It's actually a little bit more on a serious level. A problem that we're having here in America. We're going to be talking about addiction. Because, you know, everyone has a loved one or maybe someone out there is suffering from addiction right now. So it's a little bit more of a serious subject tonight. We're going to talk about addiction. As you can see, we have an empty box over there in the corner there. That's Officer Hulk Rilla from TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. He will be joining us here in a little bit. He's currently working, so he's going to join in, you know, and talk to us for a little bit and probably peace out again so he can get back to the grind out there. But before we get the show started, I do have a disclaimer. But before that, let's say hello to some of these other hosts. We have Gary down there. Gary, what's up, my man?
What's going on, man? I'm looking forward to this one. I thought the last one did really well, so it'll be not exciting, but it'll be interesting to hear from some more people's stories tonight.
Fantastic. And we also have Zach. Zach, what's up, my man?
Well, what's going on? How's everyone doing?
We're doing good, man. So, yeah, I can't wait till we get you the audio equipment. For those who know the issues and the struggles that we had about getting Zach his laptop there, he finally got one. So we got some leftover audio equipment, you know, from our upgrades that Zach's going to receive. So Zach can be full-blown professional with us very soon, we're hoping. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward. And if people don't stop sharing their live streams, listen, chat, I am going to shut off the we're going to shut this off right now just so I don't hear people send me notifications. We're going to open up our phone lines here shortly. And when I do, what is going on, Sweet Pea? Welcome in. So, yes, we are talking about addiction. Folks, I request if you have a story that you want to talk about tonight, you feel free to call into the show. You are more than welcome to call in via anonymous tonight. No one is going to be judged on this show. Not at all. Everyone out here, I guarantee, has suffered from addiction. I'll be the first to tell you that I myself have suffered from addiction. I am an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, I should say. So I will also explain my story throughout this. If Jervin, feel free to call into the show, my man. Feel free to call into the show. If I notice a missed number, we'll call you back. We disabled the notification so we don't hear it. But before we do start the show, let me start with a disclaimer. Folks, everything that you hear on this show tonight are the views and the opinions of myself, Gary, and Zach, as well as all the guests that we have on the show. Do with the information as you please, but please note that this show is for entertainment purposes only. I got to make sure I get that disclaimer out of there just so you know we don't get bananaed. If there's someone that you think that should be hearing this show, definitely please share the podcast out to them. We are live, and this will also be on Apple and Spotify by tomorrow. So, yeah, let's start talking about addiction a little bit on the facts of why did I decide to do this topic. Addiction does run dear to me because it runs on my side of the family. It also runs on my wife. So we got a double whammy here of addiction. I myself suffer from addiction, from alcohol, and it is a bloodline type of thing, but it is also a personal thing as well. You know, I went through a large part of my life heavily drinking, where I had to make sure I drank every night. So yeah, I've had to fight through my battles of that and get through that as well. So I believe Gary's had a good weed addiction. I don't know what about anything else, but I'll let Gary, you know, kind of tell you where he's been on that as far as his addiction ride goes. Gary?
You want me to go right now?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Just let everybody know why we're doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So I mean, I've definitely, as Mark said, we're brothers, and so addiction runs on not only our father's side but also my mother's side as well. And I've battled with addictions not only from alcohol but also weed for a very long time. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are, they use cannabis, and I don't have a problem with other people using it, but I know a lot of people will argue till they're blue in the face that it's not addicting, and it's just absolutely not true. But I'll share a little bit more as we go on with tonight's show.
Gotcha. And I'm not sure about Zach, to be honest with you. I never did ask Zach prior to starting the show if he's ever suffered from any form of addiction, but I do know that he did trail with a bunch of bands and so forth within his pastime. So I'm sure he's seen his fair share of things.
Well, no, funny thing, I actually used to drink heavily all the time. I'd wake up, start drinking, go to bed, wake up the next day, start drinking. But when I started touring with bands is really when I kind of stopped drinking.
Really?
Yeah.
You say-
You think it'd be like the complete opposite, but
Yeah,
they had this organization on Warped Tour when I did it. It was called Music Saves Lives, and it was about any kind of addiction. They'd hold like meetings and stuff like that. If you wanted to come sit through it for like an hour, and they'd help you help you get rid of any addiction that you had, like the whole tour. So that's really when I stopped drinking. Is I would just go attend those meetings for like an hour every night on Warped Tour, and they would do like Bible studies and like all that kind of stuff.
that's
Very
cool.
nice. So, folks, we are going to open up our phone lines here just shortly. I've got some statistics I'd love to go through. I was really hoping that Hulk Gorilla would be in here by now, but I understand he's on the beat, so he'll be in when he's able to. We are, gentlemen, we are now age restricted, which is fine on TikTok. I don't mind being age restricted. I do have some drug addiction statistics here as far as the age range go. For youths that are aged at 12 to 17, which is fucking young, about 7% of teenagers report using illicit drugs in the past month, with marijuana being the most commonly used substance. Drug use disorders affect about 2.42% of teenagers in the age group. That's actually a large percentage as far as that 12 to 17. The young adults 18 to 25, nearly 39% of young adults report using illicit drugs within the last year, with a significant proportion of these using marijuana. This age group shows the highest prevalence of drug use disorders among, which makes sense, right? Because most states now are legalizing the green stuff. Most are now going full-blown legalization. A lot of them have already gone full-blown medical. Do I believe that it's addicting? Yes. Do I believe it's bad? I got mixed feelings on it. I've seen it work quite well for people for certain things, so I'm not against it. Am I against the youth using it? 100%. I believe that, what is it, the age maturity on someone's brain? It's what, 24 years old? I believe 24, not even 21, but 24. But because legal age is 21, that's why people are able to smoke at 21 as well. I think you should wait till your brain is definitely fully developed before you start using it, because it does freaking mess with your damn brain cells. It does. But back to the statistics here. Adults 26 and older, drug use generally declines with the age beyond 26. No shit, I did not know that. But still remains significant. For instance, 16.5% of the population aged 12 or older were classified as having substance use disorder in the past year. That's nuts, dude. That's 16.5% from age 12 and up. That's a large percentage.
It's not a small number.
It's not. So that's drug. Let's go to the alcohol addiction, because alcohol is just as bad, if not worse, as far as pot goes. Use age 12 to 17. Alcohol use disorder affects about 2.9% of adolescents, translating roughly to 753,000 use. Girls in the age group have a higher incidence. Really? Females?
That's not surprising, to be honest.
Really? Why would you say that?
Well, I mean, so girls have a lot of pressure on them, right? Like, so guys can be ugly like an ogre and still marry the homecoming princess or whatever. I don't know what it's called anymore, but like,
Homecoming queen.
yeah, homecoming queen, right? But then like girls, because of, I don't know if it's a society thing or if it's a genetic predisposition for men being visually driven or whatever, but like there's a lot of pressure for girls. And they have all the filters that are on the social media. Everybody's on social media. Everybody, all the girls, you know, they're compared to like the models on TV and the cheerleaders. And so they feel like they have to look pretty. And with everybody on social media projecting perfect lives, and you know, you have that fake standard that you're trying to meet. You know, I could definitely understand that girls would be a little more driven to depression, anxiety, and some sort of substance abuse to deal with it. I mean, it does kind of make sense. It's super unfortunate, but I can see that.
So would you feel as if, as far as our youths in the whole, not just of the females, that social media has 100% a play on as far as our youth doing drugs and alcohol in general?
I think so. I shared that video to you, that TED Talk from earlier today. I don't know if you watched it.
I started watching, but the kids started going crazy. So I didn't
Okay.
think it's
So that guy gets into some pretty interesting statistics, and it shows that depression, suicide, and anxiety, and a lot of like socio society problems have significantly been on the rise, like problems with adolescents and youth and just people in general since social media has been more prevalent. Like I mentioned last week, I believe, when we were talking about like AI and stuff,
Right.
social media and the internet is a really powerful tool, and it can be used for good. Absolutely can be. But with more people spending more time on social media with the filters and everybody portraying all of this perfection, it does put like a really unrealistic like expectation and portrayal of life. And so depression and anxiety and suicide and substance abuse is definitely on the rise since more and more people are getting on social media.
Right. I mean, that's where also the bullying too causes people to start using as well. And the major cyberbullying. I think the cyberbullying is worse than the bullying that we dealt with in high school. You know, like back in there, you walk down the hall, maybe got shoved into a locker, or everybody was separated by their own little cliques in high school. I definitely do. I will agree with you there. It's definitely a lot more rougher now with the cyberbullying, which will cause people to use,
Absolutely.
as well as the suicide and so forth. Zach, do you have anything to add to that one?
Man, I mean, I agree. Like the cyberbullying and all that stuff that Gary just said, I agree everything that he's brought up about that. So,
Well, as far as alcohol is obviously still overtowering drugs, by the way.
oh yeah, 100%.
The percentage
It's readily available. Everybody, not everybody, but the vast majority of households will have beer or liquor in the house, and it's just easy access for kids to get a hold of it.
I mean, also kids are getting fake IDs and all that shit, so they can, sneak in the bars, go through drive-throughs, gas stations, get it easily that way too. So.
Right. So I see somebody post on a Vandergrant is saying, I don't know what we're talking about, but I blame the schools. Vandergrant, we're talking about addiction on all aspects, from adults to children. We're just reading off the stats for teenagers and children. I mean, it's as young as 12. And there's even some cases it's even younger than that. I mean, listen, I do believe school has a play, social media has a play, and as well as in the home has a play as well. It is also the upbringing of the child as far as what that child sees within that home is also going to play out in how that child's going to act when they go outside those doors. If the parents are sitting there using inside that home and that child sees it, that child's gonna want to experience it. But at the same time, if the parents are completely strict, I'm guilty. If the parents are completely strict and don't allow the kid to kind of feel that playground, and it's going to make that teenager want it more as well. It's going to make them sit there and go, why? Why are they holding me back? Why are they trying to prevent me from doing this? Like, now they want to rebel, and so therefore they go out and use anyways, because now they're rebelling against the parents.
Another thing that was in that TED Talk video is like when we were growing up, parents were like, they were afraid that their kids were going to get into too much trouble, right? Like I was a latchkey kid, and it's like I got in trouble. I broke rules, and I got myself into a lot of trouble, and so did a lot of my friends. But I feel like for the vast majority of my friends and myself, we turned out pretty decent. And like, there's the opposite trend that's kind of taking place now, where it's like you learn a lot of life lessons when you're out there and you're kind of experimenting with alcohol and you're getting yourself into trouble. You learn a lot that way. And kids nowadays are almost going too far to the other side of the pendulum swinging, where they're not getting in trouble enough. So they're kind of naive and they're not learning some of these valuable lessons that we learned the hard way. And so
Right.
that was another statistic that guy brought up in that TED Talk video that I sent you earlier.
Definitely. I mean, it's crazy, but let's jump. I mean, because, yeah, man, when I was a kid, I got in so much trouble and I definitely rebelled. Vanna Grainer in chat says, I had military parents growing up, no drugs, but every time my parents let me drink. See, yeah, my father did as well. And can I say that maybe a portion of when my father let me drink, did that entice me to want to drink more because I tasted it and I liked it and I liked the feeling? Is a good majority, right? But also, they do say that addiction does run within your family bloodline as well. And I have it on the double side, just like Gary. I have addiction on my mother's side and on my father's side. So there is genetics as well for addiction.
Now, there's an argument to be said though about the other side of that is
Really?
if you're a parent and you understand that children are going to experiment,
Right.
is it better to let them experiment out in the streets in environments that might be a little more dangerous, or do you allow them to experiment closer to home in the house, especially with something like alcohol or marijuana?
Yeah.
I
Like
would
there-
say in the home.
I would say
would
the
say
home,
yeah.
Right? So it's like, does that make you a bad parent in the eyes of a lot of people? Yeah, it would. But is it a safer bet because if and when something goes wrong, you have responsible adults who are there to kind of guide them through those lessons?
Right.
Right.
So it's a hard act to
catch-
balance.
Dude, it's like when I was in high school. Like my mom knew that I went to parties and I was drinking, but she would always just tell me, if you need to come home, call me and I'll come pick you up. Don't ever get in your fucking car and drive."
Yeah.
Right. It's scary, man. It's scary, especially when you're talking about kids. But let's talk about adults as well, because we were talking about alcoholics. That's what we're on right now. I got a bunch more statistics as well. But adults, as far as alcohol goes, as far as addiction goes, ages 18 and older, approximately 28.8 million adults have AUD.
What's
With-
AUD?
The
Alcohol use disorder?
alcohol use disorder.
Okay.
And with men, it's more frequently affected than women, which is wow. Okay.
In the older years.
About 11.2% in this age group with Hispanic and Latino adults having slightly higher rate of AUD compared to other ethnicities. There we go. I said it. I had to pronounce it in my head for a second.
Because their drinking age lower than 21. Or is it
And their culture, yeah.
Some cultures, yeah. What was it? Is it Ireland where it's like you can
I think
start?
some of them are
I think
16.
it's 15 or
Yeah,
16.
15, 16, yeah.
I mean, I'm a firm believer too that if you're old enough to go fight a war at the same rate, I think you're old enough to have a couple of drinks. That is one opinion that I have as well. Even though I quit drinking, but I do feel like if you're old enough to fight a war, you're old enough to drink.
And there are cultures where it's like having a glass of wine with dinner at 15, 16 years old, whatever, is not necessarily, you're not going out to get tanked, right? Like you're having a glass of wine with steak and potatoes.
Right.
But let's go to a more of a serious issue. And this is where we're going to start taking calls after I read these statistics, folks. We do have a problem currently within our country. And what's really kind of aggravated me is with these statistics, I'm only getting statistics from the range of 2002 to 2022. And it's telling me that the statistics for drug overdoses are not finalized yet, which doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. We do have a problem right now, as everybody knows. There is a border crisis here in America and across the country, across other countries as well. There is a border crisis. We have a large amount of fentanyl and other narcotics and so forth coming over our borders, and we're starting to see a large amount of overdoses. Now, these numbers, I'm sure, have definitely doubled, or at least are higher than what I'm reading now. But in 2022, the United States recorded approximately 105,452 drug overdose deaths which represent a slight decrease, it says, in about 2% of 107,573 overdose deaths reported in the previous year. Now, I believe that it can't be declined anymore, and I'm thinking that Jervin may call in for this one to let us know. Jervin does work with people with addiction.
Really?
He does.
I would love to hear from you, Jervin, if you're in here, man.
Jervin, yeah, let me plop up the number here. Feel free to call into the show right now. If I miss your call, I'll call you right back. I will get your missed call notification. I'll just call you.
Put that number on the forefront because it's kind of cut off a little bit if you can.
It's cut off.
No,
Oh, sorry. On the screen,
Oh,
it's cut off.
yes.
Yeah, on TikTok, it isn't. My bad.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me see here.
No, you have it good. You have it good. Just on my computer screen, it's behind.
yeah, on my computer screen, it's behind the boxes.
Yeah, but on TikTok, it's up front.
Yeah.
Feel free. Right now, folks, this is where I want you to call into the show. If you have an addiction story, a loved one yourself, or maybe you deal with people with addiction, please call into the show. If I miss your call, I'll call you right back. In the meantime, I'm going to leave that number up there as we talk about a few more things here. Also, if you do have suffering from addiction, you want to get help, down below, we do have the emergency substance abuse hotline down there, 1-800-662-4357. That number will be scrolling throughout the whole show. The age-adjusted rate of drug overdose deaths involving psychostimulants, which include substances like methamphetamine, has also been a dramatic increase, rising more than 34 times from 0.3 per 100,000 in 2002 to 10.4 in 2022.
Damn.
That's a huge amount of fucking increase right there. That is absolutely insane. That's an insane amount of numbers right there.
Yeah.
Folks, there's a lot more numbers that we're going to talk about. Here, let me just go ahead and unmute this. I know we had people that said they're going to call it. We're going to hear some dingings. I'm going to open up the ringers now. I really wish Officer Hulk Grillo was in here when we first did this episode. Just so everybody knows, we did have a couple of mothers. We had an addict call into the show. Somebody who was a recovering addict. We had Bubba Henson that called into the show as a firefighter perspective. So if you're even a firefighter, law enforcement officer that deals with this on a daily, feel free to call into the show. Now you can most definitely remain anonymous. When the caller asks you who's calling in, just tell them anonymous, and we'll call you anonymous, or ma'am and sir. But in the meantime, I'll just keep reading statistics, and I'm going to leave that number up there for the meantime because there is also some other stuff. We talked about alcohol. Do you know in the United States, approximately 32% of all the traffic crash fatalities involve drivers who are impaired by alcohol?
I believe it.
32% with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08%. That's 0.8 grams per deciliter or higher. That's a crazy amount of alcohol, dude. What is the alcohol poisoning at?
I know, what is it, 0.10 is double the limit, right? What is it, 1.6?
0.01.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if you blow anything over a 0.01, you're getting cuffed and stuffed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolutely nuts.
So 32% of fatal car accidents is alcohol related.
Is alcohol related.
That's wild. That's pretty crazy.
But we're also talking about overdoses while we're waiting for some phone calls in here as well. For children and teenagers under the age of 20, in 2021, more than 1,500 died from fentanyl overdoses in 2021. I guarantee those numbers have doubled by now. Because it's gotten crazier now, right? Because now they're putting it inside of pills. People think that they're buying, was it Adderall and so forth, but it's being laced with fentanyl. Well, we got a number. We got somebody calling in now.
Call from Salbella. To accept, press 1.
Chabella, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are all you guys doing?
Well, we're doing good. We woke up breathing, so we definitely cannot complain.
I mean, I woke up.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Mark Snapchat me and reminded me that we have a podcast.
Touche. Actually, I had to do
Actually, Julia just popped in to remind me to call because I just got off my live. So
that. Gotcha. Yes, because you were NYPD, right?
Yes.
Phenomenal.
So I was NYPD for a handful of years, and then I got injured trying to help someone, and mentally ill. We call them EDPs, emotionally disturbed person, and so I got 3 quarters, and I retired. So, but I know this is all about addiction and stuff, so I don't know if you have any questions how NYPD handle things or whatever, but I'm basically an open book.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's talk about, because New York is actually a very diverse population, so it would be very interesting as far as your aspect of what you've seen out on the streets, as far as the addiction process between children and adults. That's where we're kind of going right now, because, and where you see if the child is more of has an addiction, did you see that same addiction running in their household? Like, what was their household a rough household, or did they come from more of an upper class household?
So where majority of where I worked was, I worked in Harlem. That was my first area, and you have the good and you have the bad, but there is definitely a lot going on with the parents, and then the kids see the parents doing things, and then they want to do it. There's a lot of little, we call them like mini gangs, like in housing and stuff like that. There's a ton of amazing, like kids, amazing families, everything like that. But sometimes you become a product of your environment. And I've definitely saved a handful of kids from, I guess, sometimes we would call them like roundups or whatever, because sometimes it gets out of control. There could be 50 to 100 people in a certain area that it just needs to get cleared. There's, gun violence and stuff like that. And it's just whoever's there, it just, everybody goes on a bus basically. But I try to remember the faces and the good kids and stuff. And I've definitely saved a bunch of kids so that they could it would ruin their careers, like their college careers and stuff like that. There's a lot of good kids that just want to play, let's say, basketball, and they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And some people don't care. And it's just, you do what you have to do. But I've been in situations where I've literally grabbed kids out of other officers' arms just to tell them to run, because I don't want them to get put into the system, let's say, because they're really good kids. And a lot of times everybody's influenced by their friends. So You don't want to be the kid that, stands, like, you know what I mean? Like with, I don't know, if you're around 10 friends and you don't want to be the one to stand out, you're going to do what they do. So if they go and they, are robbing people or doing whatever, if you don't do it, it's like, then they're going to just put you on the outs. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I've seen definitely a lot of things happening with parents. A lot of times the parents aren't there. That's another issue. But there's definitely, it's just sad. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. But we do offer help, and there's different units and stuff that go out to certain areas with, this program. But some people don't want it, and it's just funny. As I'm saying this, you hear like
oh, no worries.
proper ambulance going by.
Gary's got his dogs always barking in the background. We're golden.
Yeah.
I'm like, this doesn't happen, but I have the window open because it's extremely hot today. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's just, there's just a lot of stuff going on where I worked. And then I also, I transferred into Queens from, well, technically Harlem is still Manhattan, but it's just whatever. And then I went into narcotics, and I was actually on the heroin overdose team. We had a specific overdose team. We did try to help people, but it's just amazing where you can track things. And I actually did wiretapping. So I used to run about 10 to 15 computers at once for 10 to 15 hours a day. So then it kind of makes you think that they're like your friend when you're listening to everyone's gossip and stuff. But it's just amazing to hear these people, because these people, you could tell they want help, but it's just so hard,
So for someone that
we're
worked I'm sorry. I was going to say,
it's okay. You go.
For someone who's working in who's worked in narcotics, A lot of these towns and cities and so forth now that are having these large overdoses from people doing fentanyl, they've created these safe use spots where people can go in and use safely. I can tell you my mixed opinions on this, but as a some of his previous law enforcement, I'd love to know what your thought process is on these safe use sites. Do you think these are enabling people more, or do you think these should be around?
See, I have mixed feelings for that too, but I do feel like a lot of the people who are addicted are poor and they can't afford things, and they'll dumpster dive and just get what they need to get just to get a few bucks to buy, let's say, heroin or whatever it is, and they're going to use dirty needles. They're going to share needles, and then all of a sudden everybody has hepatitis, HIV, all that stuff. So I feel like it could be a good thing because then they're able to do their stuff there. And a lot of times at these places, they'll provide fresh stuff. And then they'll also be there in case, God forbid, anything happened. But they also, I don't know if they measure things. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if they put you in a cubby and then that's it. Like, I'm not exactly sure. But I feel like if they can provide, like, clean needles, let's say, you know,
Right.
and I feel like people should be able to buy things like that, and that'll reduce diseases and stuff like that. Because even if I could say that when I go back to when I worked in Harlem, it's the highest, at least from what we were told, it was the highest HIV like spot in the country. And I can't even tell you how many times I had to get checked out because I maybe arrested somebody who was bleeding or whatever. And then they're like, listen, I have HIV. And then we have to do certain protocols or whatever. But I don't know I'm mixed because I feel like, could it, enable more people? I don't know. I think it might help more, but I'm on the fence, but
Okay.
I think it could be a good thing,
Right.
but
So, Gary,
I don't know.
with the question I just asked Chabella over there, that it kind of goes to you as well. 'Cause you live in Portland, Oregon, right?
Yep.
And Portland, Oregon, just recently made it legalized for any use of any type of substance. Right? You can use it, and you can use anything without being criminally prosecuted for the substance. Is that correct?
So yes and no. So a couple of years ago, they decriminalized and essentially legalized everything, and you could walk down the street and people would be smoking fentanyl, smoking meth, shooting up on the street, discarded needles everywhere. But obviously, that was a terrible idea, and crime went up, overdose went up. It just was. It was basically a failed experiment. And just recently, they have recriminalized the use of, or they recriminalized public use. So we have TriMet out here in Portland, which is like all of the public transit where you can catch a bus, catch the trains that cruise through the city. And you could basically just, if you or I were to go on that TriMet and sit down, there was just, fentanyl residue on everything.
Oh, geez.
And so, some of the lower income people or just basic people who are using public transit, they're exposing themselves, they're exposing their children to these things. And it ended up being very problematic. So they've recriminalized it. And now I just drove through downtown Portland the other day, and it seems like they've cleaned it up quite a bit as compared to a couple of years ago. And I had this conversation actually with a coworker the other day about the whole decriminalization and legalization and how I believe it has enabled people to use more than they probably would have otherwise.
Right.
And my coworker believes that it's a safe thing to have these, I guess, systems in place to allow people to have access to clean needles and clean stuff. But a lot of people don't do drugs because they're illegal. But once you make it legal, anybody who's like of an open mind, they're going to try something, and they don't realize that these things are very, very addicting, and that one try to see what it's about can just rope you in. And I've seen a lot of people just try something once and just get completely hooked and it destroy their life. Doesn't make them a bad person, but it can make them start doing unethical things to get their fix. And so I'm glad that they recriminalized it, because I feel like I think it'll make things better for the city and safer for people walking down the street with their 7-year-old child, to not have to worry about stepping over somebody who's nodding out because they're on too much fentanyl, or having to step over discarded needles and whatnot.
Right. And on the lighter side of things, for those who are out there that do smoke your green stuff as well, it'd be beautiful if you smoked those in your houses too, so we're not walking down the street smelling the green factory. I hate that smell.
I mean, obviously I smoked weed for 30 years pretty much. And I'm a little over a year now without using it in any form, no edibles, no smoking, no nothing. And I have mixed feelings about it. I feel like it's a really good substance to help people either get off alcohol, get off of other things. And if you're going to smoke it in public, I don't know. I feel like there should be certain areas where people can use, and
Kind of right, like alcohol, right? You can't drink alcohol in the public. You can't walk down the street with a 40.
I mean, in Vegas, you can.
Right.
yeah, in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's like,
so.
I don't know. I'm really mixed on weed, because I know a lot of people that it's helped out, but it didn't do me any favors, and I used it for a long time.
It's like I
And
used to
probably
smoke.
weed has gotten really bad too.
And weed is insanely strong nowadays. It's not what it was 30 years ago or what our parents smoked. It's definitely on the cusp of being like a narcotic now.
Right.
Like I used to
That's what I was going to say, something like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
We had like a lot of it laced with fentanyl, and a lot of people have died smoking it. And so I think having these dispensaries could be good, as long as they don't lace the stuff. But when you buy it on the street now since it's, at dispensaries, people are just doing it with a twist.
Right.
you
Even
know,
at the
and-
dispensary, so it's overpowered. Like,
It's really strong.
yeah, it's not what
Yeah.
we smoked when we were teenagers. It's nothing like that. But Zach, what was you about ready to say?
Oh, I used to smoke like a lot. Like I used to smoke during high school. After high school, I used to smoke a lot. And like these days, like those, even today, you can't even really trust people anymore, dude. Like, so it happened to me while I stopped smoking. This was like 15 years ago. I haven't smoked since then because of this incident. But I was smoking with my buddies, and I tripped out. And
I laced it on you.
yeah, ended up finding out it was laced, and they didn't tell me about it. And yeah,
Well,
like,
that's a scary thing, right? Because you got the dispensaries that we're talking about. It's OP now. The stuff that we used to like before when we were kids. What did we have? We had merch and good stuff. You either smoked the merch or you smoked the good stuff. That was it. Anything or shake. You had the shake too. Can't forget about the shake. But that was it. And now they got like these names that are like, what the hell are you talking about? There's Girl Scout cookie. No, I eat Girl Scout cookies. I don't smoke it. I mean, you got all this weird stuff. On top of that, you got these delivery services, at least in our state, Maine. They have delivery services. And those what scare me because you don't know who's delivering, the product that's good or the product that's laced. Like y'all were talking about there. Gary, you look like you're ready to say something.
Well, you have things that are like they have dabs and they have concentrates and they have things that are just straight wax. That's basically 100%. It's not 100%, but it's highly, highly concentrated THC. And it's like, I know a guy that I went to high school with that was smoking so much dabs that it looked like he was on meth or heroin or something. He was just sucked up. Like it made him lose a gang of weight. And speaking for myself on this one, because I was a heavy smoker, I would wake up and I'd take rips, and I'd come home for lunch and I'd take rips, and then I'd smoke before I go to the gym and after the gym and before dinner and before, like I was multiple times a day I was smoking. And when I stopped, I had I had crazy mood swings. I lost my appetite. I had cold sweats. I couldn't sleep for a while. Like there are very real physical and mental and emotional withdrawal symptoms for people who smoke heavily. And again, I know people will fight that to the end, but I follow a subreddit where there's a lot of people who are trying to get off weed, and this the withdrawal symptoms that I felt. It wasn't just me. Like there are a large number of people who are trying to quit weed, and they have these same physical and mental withdrawal symptoms that are pretty heavy. And so it's real, man. And I wish people would understand that because it's not even a hard drug, right? If you're going to compare it to like heroin or meth or fentanyl or anything
Right.
heavy, but there are absolutely very real withdrawal symptoms.
All right. Well, Trebell, you called in here, and as somebody law enforcement officer, real quickly, so we can open up the phone lines for anybody else that may want to call in. Is there anything in regards to addiction that you'd like to get your word out about?
I mean, number one, if you're addicted to anything, I just always say, someone's always there. And if you don't have anybody that, is a friend, family member, or whatever, there is the line, someone on the other line, the hotline that you're, putting across the screen, they care because they wouldn't care if they weren't going to be on that other line. So there's someone, and it doesn't matter if you try to come off of something, once, twice, three times, you just keep trying. That's all. That's all I have to say about that. But,
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Once again, y'all, this is Trebella from New York. If you want to tag before you hang up here, go ahead and tag your TikTok there. I don't mind you giving a quick tag before you get off. And there goes.
Okay. I'm on. I'll log on to your thing and say hi.
Okay, gotcha. All right, she'll come back into the TikTok. Thank you again for calling in. I appreciate
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Thanks so
Take
much.
care.
Take care.
Okay.
Folks, if you are a loved one who suffer from addiction, you'd like to call in and tell your story, you can most definitely 100% remain anonymous. I'm going to put the number back onto the board. We'll remove the number when somebody calls in. But yeah, well, since we're waiting on that we do have, I did read about the 1,500 children and so forth on the overdoses, which is a crazy number, and how the 2024 statistics are not been released yet, which is crazy to me.
What's like a crazy addiction that, because I know, because we've both seen it, not just experienced it, but we've seen it with other people. What's something that you've seen that has kind of opened your eyes to the horror of addiction?
For me, it'd be the need, right? Like, if you go X amount of time without it, is a need for wanting it. And if you don't have it, your attitude changes in a split of a second when you get angry. And your aggression is you'll take that aggression out on your loved ones. And you're not really mad at them, but your aggression towards them is huge.
And it's always like the people that are closest to you.
Exactly. And then for me, that's why most loved ones get hurt, right? That's why most of the loved ones get hurt, because they're seeing their loved one suffering, and their loved one is in so much pain, and they have so much anger because the drug has taken over, the alcohol has taken over. I mean, alcohol is a drug, so I'll just say drug. The drug has taken over and is controlling them at that point. It's really not even the control of the person anymore. It's the control of the substance.
What about you, Zach? Have you seen any real life situations that kind of shook you with someone either being addicted or having a negative effect from using?
I was at a party and my buddy dropped acid for the first time, and that was pretty scary. He literally picked up a knife and tried to stab one of my friends because he thought he was I don't even know who the hell he thought he was, but that happened, and I was like, nope.
Right. So that's the use of one-time deal, though. Like, as far as addiction, did you see anybody like how they acted if they didn't have it, or how they acted while they're on and so forth, just from their addiction?
Or like somebody who was like a straight A student and they ended up like losing everything. Have you ever seen?
Nah,
Never seen
I've
that?
never witnessed that or seen that, but
Okay.
And another sad thing, bro, like even like moms that are pregnant, when they use, those babies are born and they're addicted like automatically. Like they need
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah, they go through withdrawals in the ER and so forth, or in the birth unit. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, but folks, listen, you can talk about any addiction that you want in the show. Although we are talking about drugs and alcohol right now, but there's so many other sources of addiction as well. I mean, there's addiction to cigarettes, right? There's addiction to cigarettes. There's an addiction to this, which my brother keeps laughing at me about because I'm trying to quit. There's an addiction to these. There's addiction that Gary plugged in last time. There's an addiction, people who are addicted to porn. There's a lot of that stuff out there. There's so many forms and different types of addiction out there. So I know if you're afraid to call into the show, don't be afraid to call into the show. 100% remain anonymous. When it calls in and the AI or the Google Assistant asks who you are, like I said, just say anonymous, and we won't. Even if Zach and I recognize who you are, there's no judging, and we will definitely not release out who you are on the show.
And I know I'm addicted to this because if I don't have this, dude, I am like a fucking girl without her Starbucks.
Well, dude, nicotine in itself, well, it's interesting with nicotine, right? Nicotine is one of those things that is, number one, highly addicted. Nicotine does have the similar effects through withdrawals and a similar effect as far as if you go X amount of time with that, as if you were to try to, not as harsh as alcohol, but some of the same withdrawals of alcohol as well. You go through your anger issues. You go through your high of depression, high rate of depression. You do get depressed. And for those who say they don't get depressed, you do, because your head starts clicking, right? So when any withdrawals of anything, your head does go through these mental aspects of, you think of anything that downs you out, anything that makes you sad, and you go through depression. Let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about how I quit alcohol to the point where I admit that I'm an alcoholic, and I will say that I did have a beer the other night with my son. I only drank half of it, and it tasted like shit to me. But I'm to the point now that if I taste it like I did, I'm now not fiending for it. I'm not craving for it. My mouth's not watering when I see it. I can go to the grocery store now and stare at the alcohol, and it doesn't faze me. Sometimes I see a new flavor and I'll be like, oh my God, I bet you that tastes good. But I won't buy it. And the biggest thing that helped me as far as quitting alcohol, and a lot of people are going to laugh about this, hot sauce.
I like that though. I like that.
Hot sauce is spicy.
Now you have an addiction. You have addiction to hot sauce.
Yeah, it allowed me to chase that high and allowed me to chase that thrill with burning the hell out of my fucking mouth. It literally did. Like when I sat there, I needed something. And TikTok's another form of it too, because I'm a social person. My wife will tell you I never shut up.
True.
I never shut up.
Even when you're sleeping.
Right. Even when I'm sleeping. That's why I love TikTok, because TikTok gives me that outlet to sit there and communicate with people as if I was out at the bar having a few drinks. I'm able to talk to people and shoot the shit with people and get to know people. I'm just that kind of guy. I love talking to people. But for me, when I first quit alcohol, because TikTok wasn't there at the time just yet, or I wasn't introduced to it. Oh, stand by. That's not a phone call. That's TikTok telling us we've been on for too long, and I got to verify I'm still here. Damn, TikTok, that was loud.
Hey, Mark, I'm about to send you something on Snap, just so you know.
Okay. But regardless, so I grew hot peppers. Gary can contest to that. I grew stuff like Carolina Reapers. I grew any hot peppers. I made as much hot sauce as I could.
And you should get back to that because you made some pretty bomb hot sauce.
Oh, dude, I made some major good hot sauce. I do got to get back to it. I gotta figure out how to do my garden, man. I really do.
You grow your own peppers?
I did.
Make some homemade salsa.
Dude, he made really good hot sauce and really good barbecue sauce. He made legit.
He told me about his barbecue sauce, and I really want to fucking try that.
Dude, it was good. Like, it was like my brother's he's also addicted to being an entrepreneur. And I feel like he should have pursued a hot sauce business because he had some really good recipes. and I think he did a good job, and I think he missed the mark on a project that he could have capitalized on.
Yeah.
He made bomb hot sauce, dude.
Or did you see that though?
I did. I see it. It's right there still in my feed. You're talking about the post that I saw by Jen. Yeah. Yeah, Jen did say, unfortunately, she's seen so many people do that and have lost people to relapse. And Jervin's about ready to call in. Jervin, feel free to call in, my man. Any topic, anything you want to talk about, Jervin, because I know what you do for a profession. And I've also know that you suffer through addiction. So feel free to call in, Jervin, and tell your story. That's what we want people to do tonight.
Mark, you know what made me stop drinking alcohol? Well, I mean, I still drink here and there, but like not as much.
Right. Well, no, man. Listen, so I'm
Well-
all about it that like I still have a beer here and there.
Well, like,
What got you to curb it, Zach?
it's searching.
Go, what's that? Go ahead and answer it.
Call from
Jervin.
Give me 1 second, Zach. I'm gonna have you answer my
to
man. I'm gonna-
accept, press
let me
1.
slip Jervin.
To send
Jervin, you're on the air, my man. Hold on 1 second. We got Zach just explaining how he curbed his crave for alcohol. Then we'll come right back to you. Okay, Jervin?
Sounds good.
Thank you, sir. All right, Zach, go ahead, my man.
Okay, so yeah, like I used to drink a lot. Like I told you, I did the stuff on Warped Tour and stuff. And while I was still on Warped Tour, like when I got home, I ended up getting an OVI. I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't drunk. I did every test. I passed every test. They gave me every test they could, and they came to the breathalyzer. They didn't give it to me. They said that it was broken. Took me in, processed me, took me home. They didn't let me get acquitted of the charges. I still got charged with it. I had to do the classes, everything. Got license taken away for like 2 months because I had to complete everything. But that was the wake up call right there. Was I need to not drink as much anymore because I'm getting myself into shitty situations like that. So
Right. No, man. Especially when you have something being threatened to be taken away from you that you desperately need, right? Everybody needs you pretty much need a driver's license these days and age. You need a vehicle, and to have that thing dangle in front of you that you could lose your license for good, and and also potentially kill somebody while you're behind the wheel as well. So yeah, that's one hell of a wake up call. So Jervin, my man, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do, Jervin. I kind of know, but I want you to go ahead and let everybody know.
Well, first of all, Jervin's not my real name, but that's what we'll call myself. But I am a house manager at a recovery house. I currently have coming up on 3 years of sobriety. Alcohol, cocaine. I don't know how much you can say on here because TikTok or whatever, but cocaine, fentanyl, Xanax, and weed. Those are some of the things that, if I popped for on my drug test into detox 3 years ago. I'm heavily involved in recovery meetings in the area. I'm on leadership team at 2 of them. And then I just do my thing. I go and I speak at rehabs and kind of just, share my story and, tell that there's a better way,
Okay, gotcha. So you tell your story. So what made you want to quit your choice?
Oh, man. So crazy story. But the gist of it is, man, I realized I was miserable. I realized that no matter what I did, I couldn't feel any emotion, but let alone joy, right, and contentment. I lived a long just depression, anxiety, and then blacking out, right? Blacking out was my okay. I was okay when I was blacked out. And I just got tired of it. I don't think it was one specific event, right? Like I've lost 2 siblings to overdoses. But neither of those events were enough. I think it was just I came to my rock bottom.
Now, would you say when you weren't high that That's when the depression and so forth hit harder, and it was to the point when you got high to make yourself feel good, and is that why you kept chasing the high, or?
Well, that's how it started, right? But it got to a point where physically I couldn't stop, right? So my drinking had reached a point where I would go to work at, I get there, I think at 8 in the morning. The liquor store would open up at 10. I was in the parking lot because I had the shakes, and I couldn't really function. I couldn't function without it.
So this was speaking on my own addiction here. Tell me if this sounds familiar, because when I say this quote that I'm about to say on forums, it seems to resonate with a lot of people. But this was something that I ended up telling myself for about a year before I made the decision to get clean. And it was, when I was sober, I wanted to be high. And then when I was high, I wanted to be sober. And I told myself that for a year, every day, before I decided to just stop. Is that something that either you thought about yourself, or is that anything that you've heard other addicts say?
Yeah, I think one of the guys I worked with, oh man, if I can, I don't want to butcher it, but he said along the lines of, I wanted to quit every single day, right? But he would wake up and be right back at it.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of truth in that, you're sober and it's all you can think about, right? And then when you're high, all you can think about really is, man, I effed up again.
Yep.
Why am I still doing this? And then you start coming down and you're like, okay, where's my next one?
Yep.
That's the insanity of it, right? Like, I'm not really a big fan of it. The stereotypical saying, definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. But it's that mental battle you have with yourself. Like, it's like that, you got the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other going, hey, there's another way. But then there's the, hey, you're comfortable. You really like this. You enjoy this right now.
Now, for a lot of people there's how would you find out what helped you as far as quitting? Like we were talking about for me, it was a hobby of growing like peppers and chasing hot sauces to give me that next, like that nice adrenaline rush is what helped me, believe it or not, quit alcohol. I didn't go to any meetings or anything like that. For me, it was just finding a hobby to take my mind off of it and not think about it. Would you say that hobbies work for a majority of people, or would you say that it takes more of meetings and associating more people that have going through the same problems that you're going through?
So hobbies are great, for sure, because right, you got to occupy time. But and meetings are great. I think meetings are a great place to get involved with people, especially if you're an isolated user. But I think with 12-step recovery, it's the therapy behind the scenes, right? So I did a lot of counseling and a lot of work with a therapist to work through some of the traumas that I experienced in life. So, there's a saying, meeting makers make it. Well, that's just not true. It's the people who do the work, who dive deep into why they are stuck on consuming a substance to not deal with life, right? Because that's essentially what it is. When you're waking up and using, you don't want to deal with life, and you got to figure out why, and then you got to learn how to cope with that. So there's a lot of coping skills that are learned in meetings. I think it's a combination of everything. For me, a big one was spirituality, right? Realizing that just believing in something greater than me, that I wasn't the author of my world, that there was so much more at play than just my life being affected. That really catapulted me to, believe that there was something different for me.
All right. I mean, as someone who speaks to people that are going through recovery and so forth, and as someone who has gone through it himself, before we end our ways, we got a couple people that now wanting to talk on the show as well. Is there a message or any positive vibes you want to spread out there for anybody that maybe listened that's got a family member that's going through addiction, or maybe them themselves are suffering from addiction?
For others, with a family member, just listen to them. Don't look. You're only going to build resentments for you and for them by trying to fix them, telling them what they need to do. Just listen to them, hear them out, and when they are ready, they will ask for help. For the one that is ready, ask for help. Ask anybody. If somebody somewhere in your network of people that you associate with knows how to get you help, just reach out and don't be afraid. It's terrifying. It's scary to change routine, but it is so worth it.
I appreciate that. That's good work. So I will admit, I was quite a dick to some of my loved ones. That suffer from
Believe me,
addiction.
I've been there.
I was quite a dick to some of my loved ones for it. And the sad part is, even for me, who was a heavily drinker, and I didn't notice I had a problem for the longest time. And, I still don't understand it sometimes, but I do. You know what I mean? You understand addiction, but you don't understand addiction. It's one of those things that's really hard to understand. There's so much to it. There's so much play to it, in my opinion. Because you never know what that person's going through.
There's no cookie cutter.
No.
It's not like you can grab a syllabus and learn exactly what it is, because it's different for every individual. It's unique. It's the one disease that only you can diagnose yourself with. No doctor can, no other human can. Only you can decide that you have a problem.
And I think you said it really good, is if you can't make somebody quit if they're not ready. When they're ready, they will either reach out or they will quit. Like you have to really want it to be willing to put yourself through the hardship that is required to get clean. It's not an easy process. It's physically and mentally exhausting. So you have to be ready to put yourself through that.
Dude, it's like going to the gym, dude. Like if you have to be, ready and motivated to do something. And if you want something bad enough, you'll fucking do it.
Yeah. And this one of the guys in the comments said that the gym is what either helped him or continues to help him. And I swear by the gym and fitness wholeheartedly, because that has literally saved my life.
Gary's saying, Jim, I need to walk off screen.
Gym.
Hey, well, y'all fellas have a good night, and keep up the work. The good work.
Appreciate you, Jervin. You have a phenomenal night, my man. Thank you for calling. Appreciate it.
Thank you for helping people, because that's a process. I don't know if he can still hear me. He probably got off.
On the chat.
But either way, that's whatever he's doing, the recovery aspect that he's involved with, trying to help people and giving talks at those meetings. That's very underrated work. And he's probably volunteering. He's probably not getting paid for that. So for him to take his time to try to help people get through it is a very noble and honorable thing to do.
Dude, I will say, two of the other biggest things that's really helped me with me not drinking as much and doing a lot of shit that I used to do is music. But number one, my daughter, for sure. Having a kid definitely changed a lot of shit that I used to do.
Having a kid will make you get your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not about you anymore, right? It's like you have to keep that human alive and make them turn into a good human.
Yeah, you have to be a fucking good role model.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So we got Sonny is going to be calling the next. Blake, we're talking about addiction today, my man. We're talking about addiction. We're gonna bring in Sonny. By the way, Gary Jervin responding back to you, he says, "I get paid in treasures in heaven, my man."
Yeah, man. That's more than most people will ever make. So, again, thank you for doing what you're doing because that's awesome.
So
Yeah,
the next caller is going to be Sunny. Sunny, I'm going to go ahead and post that number up for you now, folks. Do not call in. We're going to have Sunny call in, and then we got Ryan who also wants to call in. Ryan's got a story to tell as well. But the next person to call in is Sunny, so we're going to go ahead and put that number up there. Yeah, Zach, I know it kind of covers us up a little bit. I saw you Snapchat regards to the number, but I got to make sure TikTok sees it, so we will pop it up on the screen. So the next caller is going to be Sunny, if I'm not mistaken. So the number is on the board. Feel
Yeah,
free
Blake,
to call in now.
Blake likes my new studio. You like it, Blake?
Actually, you know what I can do too is I will post this in the Snapchat group. That may also be the best way of doing it as well.
Do it on Discord too.
I can, yes. See, folks, yes, please sign up to the Discord. I don't know if the link's working. I will have it fixed later on today, so people can join the Discord and get all of our contact information there. Oh, now Gary's shutting off.
Wrong button. Wrong button.
I know why Zach and I have been popping our cameras off for a second, but
I think Gary may have been putting me on.
all right, there we go. Phone
I tried to mute so I could cough, but
didn't work too well.
Call from K.
Okay.
To
I
accept,
thought she
press
said
1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Hello, okay. I thought you said hey, and I kind of chuckled when you said hey. I was like, oh, she said hey. How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. All right. So when you heard that we were doing this episode, you said you had your own experience story that you would love to talk about. So
Yes.
the platform is yours.
So I word it like this. I had the opportunity to go through rehab and get my life straight again. So March 11th of 2019, my family put me into a rehab facility. So my addiction wasn't substance, but a habit. I was using video games as a way to get out of my life. And at my worst, I was playing 18 hours a day, not able to stop myself, and my physical health was declining. I was very literally killing myself by doing it.
Oh, wow.
When I got into the rehab facility and got checked out by a doctor, he said I was taking dopamine hits off of that like my roommates were heroin.
Wow. This is eye opener. I didn't even think about video game addiction.
can I ask what you were you trying? So obviously, when we have addictions, we're trying to escape something. I know I was trying to escape something. Are you willing to share what you're running from?
Absolutely. So at the time, I didn't know it, but I had undiagnosed PTSD from a really rough childhood.
Okay.
So you're using video
So
games.
I was using that just to get through every day and get by day to day. I was also disassociating quite a lot when talking with people in real life. Just kind of doing anything I could to just get through every day.
How are you feeling now? It's been 5 years.
Yes.
And how's life improved or
Extremely
changed?
careful on my habits. I watch them like a hawk, and I realize when I'm starting to get back into it, I need to change my ways, see what I've got that's still affecting me, and move forward from there. When I did go through rehab, I did start going to NA, Narcotics Anonymous, and they accepted me with welcome arms.
Cool.
And they said, you're no different than any of us, and you're welcome here.
So when Sunny was telling us about that, I didn't even think about that as far as video games go. So as she was talking, I just did some research here, and I guess globally it is estimated that around 8.5% of children and teenagers under the age of 18 are addicted to video games and spending roughly a large portion of their young years inside playing video games.
Well, then you have all the kids on their tablets nowadays too. Like when they're growing up, like my daughter's on her tablet all the time. I'm trying to get her away from that shit.
Right.
Have you noticed improvement in quality of life since getting that under control?
I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I knew I had to fix myself. For the first 2 weeks I was in the rehab facility, I was still in denial.
just thinking they were trying to switch up my meds and get me right that way.
Have you replaced it with anything like a different, healthier? Like I had to replace my shit with the gym. So like I'm full on addicted to fitness now. So have you replaced it with something more healthy, or what has been your change?
Actually, one thing I did get back into was the gym. I originally started going to the gym in rehab. We had a wonderful facility in Utah that we'd visit called Fit to Recover. And they showed us that there's different ways to get all those emotions out and be able to process everything correctly. I became a power lifter for 3 years.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I put all my energy into that and all my frustrations that I felt from my past into that. One other thing I had noticed with being in that addicted state is at the time, I was manipulative to my family at the time. My real wake-up call is when I took my headphones off one time and I overhear my now ex-husband at the time talking to my mom about a divorce because of how bad it had gotten.
Jesus.
So when you said 5 years ago, so your addiction was within your 20s for video gaming?
Yes. Yeah.
What would you say brought you into it? What was the first time when you realized, I guess, when you started getting addicted to video games?
Honestly, if I genuinely look back, I can see tendencies towards it as far back as 4th grade.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I mean, it makes sense though, right? Because we all entertainment when we're kids, and
Well, you look at where she's talking about right now, and look at where we're at right now as far as social media goes. Most kids right now are addicted to the streaming services that they're watching us on, right? Especially TikTok. Then you got YouTube and you got Twitch. Those are highly addicting. And a lot of kids are now not just addicted to playing the video games, but addicted to watching streamers like us, watching streamers who game Call of Duty or GTA. So there's an addiction to that too. Like, how would we as a society, now, if we don't look at the aspects of heroin or the drugs and alcohol right now, let's look at the aspects of another addiction, which is electronics and video games. How is we as a society try to fix that in a whole?
because it's more and more integrated into our everyday lives.
Right, it is. Everybody's got phones. Everybody's almost essentially every American household has a video game console inside of it if they got children.
Is there a process to pulling yourself away from the screen that you could share?
So for me, a lot of it was learning, am I using this device to escape something, or am I doing something which betters myself?
So it's the escape, seems like.
Oh, it absolutely was the escape. It was, is there something I'm avoiding by doing this? If so, that's my sign.
I say it's funny. I never even thought about that. Never even thought about that as an addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I was doing really good for myself when I reduced it from 18 hours to 12. I thought, oh, I'm doing okay now. When in reality, I was still completely checked out mentally.
Do you still game at all now?
Rarely. I have realized it's not something that's good for me. My PlayStation, which I used to be on all the time, is over at my mother's house. All I have now at this point, I'm pretty much disconnected. All I've got is phone data. Occasionally I'll get on my laptop and play something offline, but I make it something that is easy to get off of at any point.
She says, the game that I was highly addicted to for the longest time was World of Warcraft.
Or for me, my worst offender was playing Skyrim.
Skyrim. That's I think open world type of stuff.
And I had that in multiple forms, one of which was VR, so I truly was able to be out of my own reality.
Immerse yourself into there through the VR, yep. And that goes back to the AI conversation that we were talking about, Gary, as far as how bad will the addiction be in the next couple of years as AI and VR progresses, where people are going to be locked into like that movie we watched where they start feeling and touching the people they're gaming with. They got those haptic suits on, because you see it right now with the Apple Vision Pros. With those Apple Vision Pros, you can physically sit in the same room as somebody else who's overseas or whatever.
Yep.
And you guys can literally pretty much touch hands. Obviously, there ain't a haptic suit right now, so you can't feel it. But once they get the haptic suit, how many people are going to be addicted to that and be lost in the virtual reality world versus more in reality?
Are you still powerlifting?
I'm not right now, but I have started getting back into more of aesthetic fitness. I've been doing things like yoga and things like that to continue up my core strength.
Nice. I'm full on addicted to CrossFit.
Gary's highly addicted.
Yeah, for me, it was mostly squats was really what helped me get out of that mindset.
Yeah, squats and deadlifts.
I was never super good on the arms, but it was something to keep me pushing towards a goal.
Nice. Yeah, squats are amazing. I love them. I think it's any functional movement pattern I'm a big fan of. So any Olympic lift, any power lift, I think, I don't know. I'm a believer.
But yeah, a lot of it was watching that mindset of my addiction and saying, is this doing something which is benefiting me? It really came down to that, and taking care of that mental health I was trying to escape from. I did 3 months, 90 days in a residential, locked away from the world, no phone, no nothing. And then I did 8 months of IOP afterward.
What's IOP?
So residential is inpatient and IOP is outpatient.
Okay.
Well, Sonny,
and I continued going through tons of trauma therapy.
Sonny, that you opened me up to a whole new world as far as what you're saying, the addiction, because I would have never thought about that as a conversation we're having. Now, if you had to send a message to anybody out there at this point, as far as what you went through in your addiction, what would that message be for anybody out there that's listening?
If your family is worried about something about you, believe it.
So
because it really took them putting me in there to even recognize that I had that. So pay attention to your close loved ones, and if they're giving you suggestions about how you might want to better your life, believe it.
Okay, so your advice would be is listen to your family.
Yeah.
And now, what would your advice be to the family members that are trying to reach out to it? Because some can be harsh. What would you say to the family members as they're reaching out to a loved one that's in addiction right now? What would your message be to those loved ones?
They may not accept it the first time. They're not going to get ready, or they're not going to be able to recover until they are ready, until they truly do hit their rock bottom. And mine was losing pretty much everything I had. I was married at the time. I was going to lose my husband, my housing, my everything I had. So they won't be ready to recover until they've hit what they find is their rock bottom. And as they go through that process, don't disappear on them. Be there through it because they're going to need your support more than anything.
Love the advice. Gary, Zach, do you have any questions?
I think it's eye-opening. I think it's very real. It makes sense. It's unfortunate, but I'm glad that you were able to pull out and kind of recalibrate. I think sounds like you found the right things to kind of replace the gaming with, and sounds like you got things back on track.
Yeah, and for me, a huge influential part was going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. That was a huge thing that got me set on the right place. finding people who could relate with your situation, being able to talk about it and talk about how you can get better from relying on each other's experiences and saying, if they can do this, I can too.
Gotcha.
Very eye-opening. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Sonny, for calling in. I appreciate you telling us your story. Sometimes it's hard to get up here and tell people your story, so I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it's worth getting better. It's worth doing the hard things. And if you're having, trouble, speak up with someone about it.
I appreciate that, Sonny. Thank you so much for those words. And thank you for telling us your story. Definitely appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
Yes, ma'am. Let's have Ryan coming up next, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan's going to be calling up next. Let's go. I never even thought about gaming addiction, dude. Never thought about that.
It really ties into what we were talking about last week with just the AI, the gaming, Ready Player One. Like, it's a real thing. I think it's going to be more prevalent as time goes on, as screens and more gaming and more opportunities to use these digital landscapes as an escape. I think it's going to become more and more prevalent.
Oops, I was going to say, do you think that addiction will overtake the current problems that we have here in America as far as drugs and alcohol? Do you think that the percentage of that will overtake that, or do you think that it will reside right around the same borderlines?
I think realistically, it probably already is a higher percentage. In all honesty, I think there's more people addicted to video games and or screens and screen times than drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe.
All right. We got another caller coming in
Call
right
from
now.
Ryan.
All right, we got Ryan calling in
to
now. Let's go
accept,
ahead and
press 1.
bring him
To
in.
send a voicemail,
Ryan, you are on the air, my man. Welcome in. I believe, Gary, did you have anything you want to finish up before we bring Ryan?
No, I think I kind of touched on it.
Gotcha. Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself, my man, and welcome in.
Welcome. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on. My name is Ryan, obviously. Man, I don't even know where to begin. How long do you have?
Well, we're about a 2-hour podcast, my man. But go ahead. We're trying to squeeze anybody who wants to call in. So definitely, man, let us know what made you want to call into the show. I guess we'll start with that. What made you want to call into the show?
Well, you popped in, Mark popped into a live that I was in, and I was kind of just sharing like a short story on, some of my life and where I've been in active addictions and, just kind of what life has done for me through that. So I was like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to try to call in, even if I thought it was Sunday, but apparently it's Monday. And so I'm at work trying to dog it out real quick, but I can try to give a short story. Growing up, I was in church. My mother raised me as a single mother. She took me away from my father in order to protect me from his drug addiction and his alcohol addiction. At about 17, I discovered that alcohol was a good thing, according to what I was thinking way back then. I remember my first time was just like, it was a sloppy blur and disgusting. And, eventually that, became the norm. My senior year in high school, I shattered my ankle playing soccer to stay in shape to go to college to play football. I lost my football scholarship, had to sit out a year rehab, and then got myself picked up by a different college. And at that point, the painkillers were being handed out like candy. So, that eventually later down the line led into a meth addiction, but I'll get to that in a moment. At this point, I'm going into my freshman year of college. I was the college student that, loved to party. Except for, Friday night, I was trying not to during football season, but Saturday night we were getting, turned up, whatever. And eventually, the second to last week of the season, I jump up over the middle of the field, catch a post route. The starting strong safety hits me on my back. I have a high ankle sprain on that same ankle that I shattered in college or in high school. And that ended my career playing football. That right there, I think, was the turning point that sent me down the spiral. I then became the guy that was walking into class with a water bottle. Granted, the bottle was clear, but it had clear liquor in it. I was drinking day in and day out. In my early 20s, I'm pretty certain that there was like a 3 to 4 year period where I would drink every night to get drunk or to black out. And if I ran out of alcohol before the stores had closed, I'd get behind the wheel of the car and I'd go drive and get more. So in my mid 20s, one drunken night, I decided that I was going to go out and hang out with this young lady and a couple of friends, and discovered meth. And I had already been toying around with pills, like painkillers and stuff. And at this point, I'd been snorting those probably off and on for a couple of years. And the meth, it did a good thing in the fact that it took me away from alcohol, but it was like replacing one addiction with another. Granted, I only spent about 4.5 months strung out on that. But that took me from being about 180 pounds at that point in time to about 130. The reason I left meth behind was I was threatened one night with a gentleman that my ex, actually, the girlfriend at the time, but she cheated on me with this guy. And I eventually found video evidence of that type of thing, but that's neither here nor there. So he came and he said, if you're not gone by tomorrow, I'm coming back with my gun. I reach out to my brother. My brother had walked away from heroin cold turkey. And he was like, you know what, bro, get your shit together. Come up here. So I left the state of Tennessee and moved to New Hampshire. That was back in 2013. And that was really a turning point in the drug addiction. I was able to walk away from that. March 15th of this year, I celebrated 11 years away from hard drugs.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
That. Thank you. But the alcohol, the thorn in my back.
Came back to the alcohol.
So, went right back into it, hot and heavy. Spent, I actually had taken, while I was in New Hampshire, because I was in New Hampshire for about 7.5 years, I took a couple of pretty good stints away from it, like an 18-month stint, a 13-month stint. But it kept coming back. Anytime I would have a relationship end or relationship problems, I would turn to that effing bottle, and it's my kryptonite. It really is. And anytime I get that going, I end up on benders and I end up burning things around me. Basically, I burn shit to the ground. And so in 2020, I had a real like God moment. I'm at this point, we've shut down. We're a few weeks into the pandemic or whatever, and I'm taking a shower and I hear this voice that says, baptize yourself. I'm like, what is this about? So I tried to do it. And at that point, my shower wouldn't switch to the bath. Like I couldn't turn the water. So the enemy was trying to fight that. And so finally I get that. And then the drain wouldn't close. And finally I get that. This was like a 40 minute process just to get switched from shower to bath. So I baptized myself. And when I came out of the water, this black gunk came out of me. And I was like, oh, wow. And the voice said, if you don't baptize yourself, you will die. And I was like, oh, well, I'm listening to this. I don't want to die. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So I did that, go through the pandemic. I spent 8 weeks without any financial support because somebody filed my income incorrectly with the government. So they didn't see that I had made money that year. So they weren't paying me anything. Took about 8 weeks. I had one of my guests from the restaurant that I was working at actually bring me about $150 worth of food. Just randomly was like, hey, we know you're not getting paid right now. Here's $150 worth of food. So I learned how to survive on very little means there. But we survived it, eventually got paid all the bills and everything. And then in August, I decided that it was time to come back to Tennessee. My mom's health just isn't going well. So I was like, I'm going to come down here and I'll take care of things. Like, oh, I got you, Mom. She's been my A1 since day one. So I'm coming down here. At this point, I'm sober. I had been sober for, probably, I was going on like a year plus. And one New Year's came around. And I was like, I'll just have a glass of champagne. Well, that glass of champagne turned into like a 2.5, 3 month bender.
So you're saying
then,
that the alcohol for you is definitely your kryptonite?
Yes, the alcohol is 1,000% my kryptonite.
Would you say you're off alcohol now, or are you still addicted to alcohol right now?
I am. Today makes 21 days. So we're off it. And the date that I stopped drinking is very symbolic to me. It's the 1 year anniversary for my brother's death. And my brother, I think, ultimately going out with pancreatic cancer, he battled it for 5.5 years. But ultimately, I think that I would blame alcohol on his death. My father died in March of last year. My brother died in April. And both of them, I think, were taken out by alcohol. Alcohol-induced dementia for my father. So it's definitely in the genes to be an addict, and I have to be the one that's going to be the generational curse breaker.
Gosh, so take everything that I say. Remember, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not this is not medical advice in any way, but somebody who has been able to pretty much kick alcohol in its ass, I would say. Granted, I have broken, like I said, during my children's birthdays, but I'm able to not look at it the same way, not have to touch it the following day. Have you tried anything as far as a form of like a hobby? Like I was mentioning earlier in the podcast, for me, it was growing up, it was chasing another thrill, right? Having that addiction is hard. You kind of have to get yourself another healthy addiction, I would say, versus the bad addiction. So for me, it was hot peppers and hot sauces.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that.
Listen, it's actually very interesting, right? For me, for alcohol, I'm a social type of person, right? So for me, I had to chase something that gave me that thrill and that excitement, just like alcohol did with me. For me, I chased hot peppers and I chased hot sauce because it gave me that thrill, and it gave me, believe it or not, hot peppers will give you one hell of an adrenaline rush, dude. When your body's on fire and your mouth is freaking burning, the adrenaline rush that you get out of it is the most intense, insane adrenaline rush, and that worked for me. But then again, it could be different for everybody else, but that's what worked for me. So the thing is, you got to find yourself a hobby. Yes, your loved ones that should be your key motivator, but that's not going to be the only thing that works. You got to find yourself something like, if I'm craving that alcohol, what can I do right now that's going to take my mind off? What can I go do right now so I'm not tipping the bottle? Have you tried any of your local meetings in your area at all?
So, real quickly, so in 2021, I actually flipped and rolled a vehicle. I spent 17 days in the ICU at Vanderbilt. I had a traumatic brain injury, a laceration of the spleen, fractured my sternum, fractured 5 ribs, basically blew out my L3. So they had to fuse my L1 through L5. I had a temporary colostomy bag that got reversed in 2022. So that should have been my freaking wake up call right there. And I went 14 months without it, and then I went to my brother's wedding back in New Hampshire and relapsed again. I've relapsed 2 or 3 more times since then, but like I said, we're at day 21, so the habit is supposed to be broken after 21 days. But my healthy outlet now is trying to, because I went from, again, 185, 190 with that car accident to like 139.2. So I'm trying to put my body weight back on in a healthy manner. So I spend a lot of time in the gym now. And I work a lot. Now I have an issue with meetings because I was raised as a Christian. I believe in confession of the mouth. So every time you speak at, say, AA meetings, they say, Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm an alcoholic. I feel like in order for me to personally break that addiction, to break that generational curse, I can't say that I'm an alcoholic. I can say that I struggle with this addiction. But so I've done some Celebrate recovery, and their thing is, I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ. Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with this or that, and so I found that was very helpful for a while, but it was also like I was working 65-hour work weeks and not having a lot of free time to myself, and so that was getting into my mental. So last year I ended up having to be escorted away from my apartment they did a wellness check, and they had to do some like a 12-hour. The first one was a 12-hour stay, and then I was released because the psychiatrist came in and said everything was cool. Well, then that happened again back in like February or March, and again I was escorted out. This time I actually ended up at the psych ward. And it's just for threats, not threats, but pictures that were sent out. Poor judgment, and in the midst of a relapse. So, I've noticed that a lot of my depression comes out more so when I'm drinking. Obviously, it's a depressant. So, now I'm focused on the gym. I'm actually putting goals in front of myself. I'm going to write a book with my mother, and that should be coming out this year. I'm actually interested in starting a podcast at some point to let people come on and share their stories, kind of like this is doing right now. So I feel like if I have goals in front of me, I'll be able to stay the straight and narrow. And like I said, with it being on my brother's day that he passed, and why he's gone. And, I just think that's more symbolic to me. And I want him to be up there looking down at me and being like, I'm proud of you. Thank you for staying sober for another year. Thank you, kid, bro. So that's kind of my drive now.
With regards to fitness, and I hate to keep going back to this because it's like my crutch nowadays, but do you have any like goals with fitness, or how are you using fitness specifically to keep you on the straight and narrow?
Well, more recently, it's been like, okay, when I feel that urge, that because being in the food industry, I get out super late, right? Yep. It's the witching hour, if you will. Yep. And that's usually when I'd be able to go home and drink. Well, now instead of going home and going to drink, I go home and I'll go to the gym. And I immediately, I'll put, depending on my mood, like the past couple of times that I've been in the gym, I've been pretty pissed off. And so I went in with rage music in my headphones and just zoned out. The goals with the fitness, I want to be proud of the person that I'm staring at in the mirror. There's been a lot of times throughout my life that I've looked in the mirror and been like, oh my gosh, like that's not what I want, and that could also have a lot to do with the depressing side of alcohol, being in my head about, because I personally think I'm an attractive individual, but my body wasn't that sex appeal that, I would rather have, So that's kind of more my fitness goal there. I'm using it as my witching hours, my thing to not drink.
So is it like a 24-hour fitness, or you hit if you're getting off work pretty late, I would assume are you like the midnight crew, the 2:30 in the morning lifter, or when are you?
I'm a late night for sure. It doesn't so the apartment complex that I'm at right now and the one that I'm moving to, they have 24-hour fitness centers, so I can go at any point in time. So if I say I get home from work and I'm tired, but, I chill for a couple hours and all of a sudden I feel that urge, then I'm going to get my butt up and take my butt to the gym.
So you say you work in the restaurant industry, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that's going to be one of the hardest things to work, and especially when you're trying to quit alcohol, right? Because restaurants do serve alcohol, so you're around alcohol throughout your whole work hours because there's typically bars out there, there's beers in the cooler and stuff like that. So, and versus fighting that alcohol when obviously when you guys are closing up, employees are sitting there at the bar or having their drinks during the pressure of the rush hour when you're slaying that food, your mind is staying busy. But how are you fighting that push during the business hours days while you're working? How would you say? Are you using what Gary was discussing during last week's podcast? What did you call it? The inner dialogue? Would you say that you have an inner dialogue telling you that you want to drink, but then you got like the good versus evil going on in your head saying, no, I cannot have a drink? Do you kind of got something like that going on?
So I don't think that I have that dialogue. There are times when I'm working private events, I'm like, oh, I could have this, but I have to keep bringing it to the forefront that, you know, my mother, the woman that raised me and made me the man that I am today, needs me to be there. And if I relapse again, I lose this job, which is a pretty substantial income for me. So I kind of do that by having that drive, you know. The after hours things, most of the time in the place that I'm at now, that doesn't really happen here. You know, like tonight I had a private event and I had 4 bottles of wine that were opened, but they're already paid for. The guests didn't take them with them. And I went and found other coworkers that I could give those to just because I'm not taking it. And the other 2 people that work in the party with me they don't drink either. So I'm finding more and more people that don't drink in this industry that it's just kind of shocking to me. But I do think that there is a generation that's coming up that has seen a lot of addictions in that manner. And I think that they're kind of like, oh, let's not, because I'm also seeing a lot of like increased amounts of non-alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic cocktails and non-alcoholic wines. It's kind of different. And it almost in a sense makes it seem easier for me when I have, you know, support from my coworkers. I have a nice little family that I work with, basically. It's like my tiny little family away from home.
Right.
Athletic Brewing is a really good non-alcoholic beer company. And they have like 3 or 4, maybe they probably have a lot more now, but I know when I was trying to get myself away from drinking, I still was craving, you know, stouts and IPAs and whatever, beer. And so I drank a fair amount of Athletic Brewing. They have a really good non-alcoholic beer for those who want to have the flavor, but they don't want to drink. And if they're trying to just keep their health in check, because a lot of the athletes out in a CrossFit gym, you know, they don't want to drink, but they used to drink, or they're social drinkers. So they want to still participate in the activity without screwing up, you know, the ability to show up tomorrow morning at 5:30 and put in an ass kicking workout. So yeah, I think to pair into what you're saying, I think there are a lot more non-alcoholic options that are available now that are not complete trash.
You told me about that before, Gary. I have to check into that one. Zach, do you have anything for Ryan at all? You've been quite quiet tonight, Zach.
I've just been listening, man. I'm proud of everyone that's, you know, doing what they're doing, getting help, you know, asking for help, doing what's the word I'm looking for? Hobbies to get their mind off of things that they are, you know, addicted to. So I'm proud of, you know, Sonny, Ryan, Cabela, everyone that's been, you know, calling in, telling us their stories and stuff. So you guys are doing awesome.
Ryan, I do have another person that sent me a message in here, so we're going to get back over to that message. But before I let you go off this call, Ryan, is there anything else that you would like to get? Is there a message you want to get out there before we hang up with you?
I mean, honestly, I know everyone has said, you know, listen to your families, but it's hard when you're in your active addiction. It's hard to hear that. And then, you know, especially with people with alcohol, because it is a depressant, it makes it even worse because they beat themselves up thinking about, oh, I'm letting this person down. I'm letting this person down. What it takes is, and I think it was Sonny that said it, you have to hit your rock bottom. You have to hit rock bottom, and you may hit rock bottom 1,000 times, but the thing is you have to get up 1,001 times, so I'll say that you have to have the mindset that if you see somebody struggling in their addiction, you can lean into them, you can love them and let them know, but just know that it takes that individual wanting it for themselves before they're going to ever seek the help or ask for help to get out of that situation.
Yep.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Ryan, number one, congratulations on the 21 days, right? I think you said 21.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations on that. Keep pushing through, Ryan. Reach out always on TikTok, my man. Any questions? Anything about the hobby, the hot sauce, my man? Telling you, it's great. Hit up Gary for fitness. Hit me up for the hot sauce.
And get that Discord link running, and I'll join that.
Sounds good, my man. I'll get that Discord fixed tonight for y'all. But thank you again for calling in, Ryan. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, man.
I appreciate y'all. Yeah, absolutely. Y'all have a great night.
You too.
You as well, man.
All right, so we got somebody that came in through TikTok. They sent me a message. I'm not sure they want to remain anonymous now, but I'm going to keep them anonymous because they did not say. Before I go into this and before we discuss this message that I got, I do want to reiterate to people that everybody that's on this podcast right now, myself, Gary, and Zach, or any of the guests on the show, no one is a medical professional, so anything that we say is definitely not medical advice. Everything that we would say would be a personal experience that we've experienced or things that have worked for us. Obviously, it takes up to you to figure out what's going to work for you. You can try the things that people have talked about on the show to see if it will work for you, because it never hurts to try, right? You got to keep on trying to get through it. Let me get through this message now. And I also had to pull up a description of one of the things they suffer with, so I can explain that as well. So they have a situation. One of their addictions turns into another, even though they're working without they're working without patient therapy. They would like any suggestions that may possibly help them out. It's a single mother who does suffer, who's dealing with CPTSD. For those who don't know what CPTSD is, that's a complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a psychological disorder that can develop following exposure to prolonged repeated trauma, particularly in situations where escape is difficult or impossible. So a rough relationship per se. Theirs is alcohol plus battles. I'm guessing when they're saying battles, I'm guessing that'd be gifting, right? Throwing money that you should be keeping to provide. You're throwing that money out because, and I guess you would say, if you're saying battles, I would say that's probably more of a gambling addiction. That's what I look at battles for on TikTok. I look at TikTok as a gambling as far as, oh, I got to win. I got to win. That's why I'm throwing out bigger. But as far as alcohol goes, there's been a few people on this panel that have suffered from alcohol. I myself have suffered from alcohol, and I've already stated that one of the things that worked for me is hot sauce. It is really finding a hobby. As far as I'm concerned, that's what worked for me. There's meetings that work for people. Zach has stated, what has worked for you again, Zach?
When I was touring, going to the little meetings they had, and then also, being around people that were going through the same shit and talking with them about it, and we all worked together with it and got through the whole summers of touring on Warped Tour, going through those Music Save Lives meetings and stuff like that, and then also, like I said, having my daughter changed a lot of shit. So I barely even drink that much anymore, just because
Josh,
got to be a role model. So,
Gary, what do you got for that message that we have out here?
Finding ways to preoccupy yourself. They say an idle mind is the devil's playground, and I think changing your environment, finding ways to preoccupy yourself, finding a community. Again, I'm going to tie it back into fitness because it's worked for me. But like for me, CrossFit, the community, the people that I've met there, they're all motivated, healthy, ambitious, well-intentioned people that have prioritized well-being as like their most important thing in life, and it's been a life changer for me. And so I feel like you get around people who are motivated and they want nothing but to be better, they're going to be the ones to get you through things, because every single person in the world is dealing with some shit. And it's all relative. So somebody who's come from an abusive family, an abusive relationship, they just have low self-esteem, they were picked on, whatever the case may be. When you're around motivated people who don't have that like overbearing positivity, that's like kind of toxic positivity, they're real people, and they know how to deal with struggle. Those are the best people in the world. And sometimes the bros at the gym and the broettes at the gym who are super addicted to fitness, they're all fighting demons, and they've managed to do it through healthy means. So finding a community, finding people who just want to be better, and changing the environment, I think for myself have been the most influential and positive things that have helped me.
Friends who peer pressure are not friends neither. That's for sure. Friends that are trying to get you to do the unhealthy habits, or to keep chasing the addiction, and also friends that you got to learn to separate yourself from. That's probably one of the hardest things to do, is to separate yourself from those friends, because
Sure.
to you they are your friends, but at the same time, if they're trying to pressure you, or if you're hanging out with those friends and you feel as if you need to do what they're doing, that's got to be a crowd that you got to break yourself away from.
Yeah. And it's hard.
It's extremely hard. Listen, folks, tonight's episode, it was not our usual banter, talking shit to each other and so forth. This was more of a serious note, because we do have a problem here in America and across the globe, really, of addiction. I believe more stories should be told. I would love to hear some stories from family members who've had loved ones that suffer from addiction. We may revisit this one again in the time within time. But for now, folks, listen, if you have a loved one that's suffering from addiction, or maybe you are suffering from addiction, as always, please call the Emergency Substance Abuse Hotline at 1-800-662-4357. Those people that are on the other end do care. And it also may seem like you hear the bad stories about law enforcement officers and firefighters and so forth, but do know that they are there to help you. They're not there to judge. If you walk into a police department today and tell them, I have an addiction, I need help, law enforcement will help you. They will not judge you. They will help you. Their job is to provide community service, and as part of their community service, and they want to help you. Because if they help you succeed and they can get you into a facility, number one, you're not causing trouble in the streets. Number two, they're not responding to an overdose. They're not responding to someone who is suffering from alcohol poisoning and so forth. Law enforcement is there to help you. They do get a negative eye a lot within society and social media and so forth, but they are truly there to help you. I wish we had, like I said, Hulk Gorilla on the show tonight to discuss some of these programs with y'all. We did have a former NYPD officer on the show, which I loved hearing her aspect regards to the Bronx. So, folks, please reach out. If you need help and know a loved one needs help, please reach out to them. I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Y'all are freaking phenomenal. Next week is going to be a little different. Next week, we're going back to the banter. Next week, we have two unique guests coming on the show. They're taking over our podcast. We have Sully, who'll be taking over our podcast with JC. JC owns a hunting show. So I'm sure Gary's going to love talking to JC to talk about game meat. So this should be a pretty decent show. JC does a lot of hunting. He also owns a bar. So it should be interesting as far as that goes. But listen, folks, I do appreciate y'all tuning in. Y'all are phenomenal for all y'all support that tune into the show, as well as for everything else you do throughout the TikTok community. That is all I have to say. Zach is raising his hand. Zach, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I will say also, if you guys ever want to reach out to me, Mark, Gary, reach out if you guys want to talk about anything, guys. My DMs are open always. If you guys need anything, always fucking message me. Come in my live. Tell me you want to talk about something. I'll fucking get off instantly. And yeah, I'm also proud of all you guys that are getting the help you need for these kind of addictions. And that makes you strong as fuck. So I'm definitely proud of you guys.
Yeah, fighting your addiction, kicking ass with your addiction. You are strong, and even if your addiction is kicking your ass, you're still strong. You will fight through. It does take time. It's not going to happen overnight. Addiction is something that you have to fight for, and you got to fight hard for it. It's definitely not an overnight thing. It's definitely not an overnight thing. It takes work, and it takes hard work. So congratulations to everybody that called in today with their success stories. Congratulations to those who listen on the sidelines with their success stories. We appreciate y'all, and y'all are doing phenomenal. Once again, that substance abuse hotline is 1-800-662-4357. Gary, do you got anything you would like to say?
Just to kind of reiterate what you guys have both said, just to come forward and share your story is not easy. You've put yourself in a position of vulnerability to kind of come forth and share your experience. It's not easy to get clean, and the most people are going to relapse. It's going to take a couple of times. It's not easy. It took me a handful of tries. Even when I wanted to, I wasn't ready. But when I was ready, I made that decision, and I think that if and when you guys are ready, you'll make that decision. Listen to your family, listen to your friends, reach out to your friends and family, because if you know that you have a problem, your peers probably recognize it as well. And I think that more people will be more willing to help you get clean. They're not going to judge you. Everybody's fighting something, and everybody needs a little bit of help. So thanks to everybody that's shared their stories, and congrats to everybody that's fought the good fight and won, or if they've lost and they've gotten back up and tried again. Keep fighting the good fight.
And before Zach says it, always wipe front to back.
Listening to the Mark G Show. You may know them from their political commentary, but there's a lot more to the fellas than politics. And that's why we created
Zach.
this show. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like,
for Gary.
rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But until then, make sure to reach out on social media. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok at The Mark G Show. And to email the show, it's on air at themarkgshow.com. Take care, and we'll see you next time on the Mark G Show.
Yes.